months. So I'm just going to give a presentation on some of the key herd book rules and the registration process. Okay, so I've put this presentation together with the help of Shane, who puts up with a lot from me, and our current president, Eustace. And I also have to acknowledge the significant contributions from our council, which we're really lucky to have. They're the ones that have thought all these things through and helped us implement them, and the ICBF as well for taking all of our ideas and actually making them a reality. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about the basic herd book rules for entering animals and registering calves. Genomic registration, that might be a new term for a lot of people. So what is it, and what are the benefits, and why are we doing it, and how are we doing it? The most common, I guess the most common thing that I get questions on is embryo transfer and the rules around implanting embryos and flushing females. So I'm just going to go through that briefly as well. Our registration process for Irish members, and we have a registration application for EU members as well. And I'm also going to talk about the current process that we have. And as I've always said to everybody for the last 15 months, if you're in doubt about anything, do ask. There's myself and Shane. And if we're not under a huge snowfall of work, we'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, so starting with the most basic herd book rules, if you have a calf that you want to enter into the herd book, you have to look at the mother and the father. So the mother, so if you have a cow that you want to transfer into our herd book, she must be genotyped and a minimum of SAR verified entering our herd book. So the genotype, if she's not already genotyped as in another herd book, we genotype her as part of our transfer process, and that's covered in the transfer fee as well. And we'll get her SAR verified. Parentage verified would be ideal, and that's required for flushing, which I'll talk about as well. So any females that are first calvers, they must be genotyped and a minimum of SAR verified by the time they have their first calf. So while we do males, we do the genotyping and the parentage verification before they get their certificate. Females have to be done before they have their first calf, or when their first birth is notified. So for the father, he must be, again, a minimum of genotyped and SAR verified entering the herd book. If he is born after the 1st of January 2020, he must be myostatin tested for NT821 and F94L genes, and he must be parentage verified. Okay. So I guess this is really easy for some people, and it's more complicated for others, is the calf naming procedures that we have in our herd book. So you are following the dams family line. So we don't use a year letter that changes every year. We don't cycle through the alphabet. We stay with the dams family line. So that's a really great way of, you know what family lines you have and you know what bloodline you have, and it makes it easier for you to follow different cow lines and that if you're into showing and breeding. So when we have a new member that joins, I try to give them, as you'll see what's in this table here, try and give them a table for, this is the system for how you're going to name your calves. So if your cow is called Brussels-Town Lady Helen V138, and let's say your herd prefix is Ringwood, so your calf's name is going to be Ringwood, Lord or Lady, if it's male or female. H, you're going to pick any name beginning with H. Then you're going to have your year letter, which is Y for 2022. It's going to be the letter Z for 2023, and then we're going to cycle through the alphabet with the exception of 1 or 2 letters. And the last 3 digits of the calf's ear tag number. Now, there will be females entering the our herd book from other herd books that may have different naming systems. So this is where this table comes in really handy. If you're not sure, we'll try and give you this as a starting point. If you're a new member or you're transferring females, just so you're sure what family line you have and what naming system you're going to use. And just to show you here from our registration database on ICBF, I've just blanked out the names here, but just to show you some of the common issues that we get with the registrations when we check the list every morning. So you don't leave a space between the year letter and the last 3 digits of the calf tag. That all stays as 1. So you can see here, this one pulled an error, the first one, because it's Y space 414 when it should be Y 414 altogether. The next one down here, so this is an animal that was born on the 10th of July 2022, and it flags an error here because the year letter is wrong. So it should be Y for 2022, X was for 2021. And the next one here is, you can see this is a funny one here now. It's the animal was named Dream On, so it was Dream -on. So the software won't accept any special characters. So you can't use ampersand, hash, percentage sign, minus sign, plus sign, nothing like that. So you have to use letters. So you have to use the letters of the alphabet for naming. So we do have, like, always ask if you're not sure. Like, I do try and send naming guides. Like, most people are really good, they get it, you know, and they're able to do the naming. But if you're stuck or you're not sure, I do have, we do have a guide as well that we can email to you or post out to you if you're not sure. But always just ask us, and like we'll be happy to tell you. Genomic registration. Okay, so I'm just going to start here with 2 images that we have. So if you look at the 2 images on face value, you probably look at both of those animals and say, well, they're both Aberdeen Angus females. Okay. The animal on the right is an Aberdeen Angus female. The animal on the left, while it may look like an Aberdeen Angus, it's not. It's actually, it's a rare breed called a Kerry cow, but she looks like an Aberdeen Angus. So with the growth of herds, and that, like, where there's people using a lot of different bulls and they might have mixed breeds on their farm, you really have to move with the science. So the best way to ensure that you've got herd book integrity is to do genomic registration. So this is where you genotype and you parentage verify. Now we're doing the males at the moment as a start. We said we would do the males to start with because let's get one thing right rather than just going straight in, you know, just in case we do encounter any problems. And the females do have to be done anyways when they have their first calf. So you do have a stop gate there if an animal is incorrect. So genomic registration eliminates any administrative costs. So if we were not testing any animals when we were sending out certificates, I think last year we recalled 177 certificates for females that when they were genotyped, it showed that they had the wrong sire or the wrong dam or they were the wrong breed. So it eliminates that administrative cost, any registration errors and any errors with the incorrect breed, the incorrect sex, the incorrect sire or dam. So what you have on your certificate for your males, it's verified. You know that that's the correct sire, that's the correct dam. You have the myostatin gene status of your animal printed on your certificate. So that eliminates any errors going forward. A lot of herds these days may run 2 or 3 stock bulls, so they don't particularly have the means to identify straight away which is the sire of a particular calf. So genomic registration also helps the breeder out because it removes that uncertainty when you come to sell an animal. At least you can say it is by this bull because it's verified, rather than having someone coming back later and saying, well, it wasn't. And the ICBF, it's the largest beef genomics database globally, and it's currently got over 2.5 million genotypes. Okay. So in relation to calves born by embryo transfer and flushing females, there's 2 avenues with this. So the first one, which is the most common I would find with our European breeders, is if they purchase embryos for implantation. So you may purchase embryos that were created in Canada or the United States or Ireland or the UK. So you want to make sure that the service sire, so the sire of the embryo, and the donor dam are entered into our herd book, and that they are parentage verified and they have a genotype, a valid DNA profile. So please check if you're not sure, please check with us. A lot of the, I would say, modern embryos that you would be purchasing that would have been created from 2020 onwards, there would be genotype profiles available for them, but just give us the chance as well and the time to make sure that we can get the profile and we can get it loaded before your calf is born. So you would receive a copy of an implantation certificate when you implant the embryo into the surrogate dam. So if you can send a copy of your implantation certificate when you register the calf, we would need to see that just to be sure that that is the embryo that's being implanted. And as I said, calves born by embryo transfer must be genotyped and parentage verified, regardless of whether they're male or female. Okay, there have been incidences of the wrong embryo was in the wrong straw and things get mixed up. So again, you know, if you have the ability to verify something, do it. Don't take it on face value. Same if you have a cow that you want to flush, you'd like to take embryos, she must be entered into our herd book and she must be genotyped and parentage verified, that she's verified as being out of her sire and her dam. And also check that the AI sires that you're using in the flush are also parentage verified and genotyped. And again, ask us if you're not sure. And when the embryos are created from your veterinary surgeon or the lab manager, they will give you an embryo registration form. So if you can send us a copy of the embryo registration form too, just that the embryos have been created and they're in your possession, that just helps keep the registration process seamless. And again, same point as above, that any calf born by embryo transfer must be genotyped and parentage verified. Okay, so the registration process for the EU breeders, it's just a bit different to the Irish breeders, which I'll come back to as well in a second. So when the EU breeders send me in a registration, they'll also send in a tissue or a hair sample with the calf. So the reason they do that is on the Irish system, we have kind of a live feed to people's herd profiles. So we can see what cows that they've purchased, and when a cow is sold, it leaves their profile. It's linked to the Department of Agriculture registration system. So because we don't have that with the EU breeders, if we have the DNA sample from the calf, we can verify that it's out of its sire and its dam so that everything is correct. Whereas we don't, you know, we have no other way of knowing particularly if they own that, if they, let's say they own that dam or they own that sire at the time. So, and they usually send us a copy of the animal's passport, just an image of it as well, so we can see that. And the call rate for the samples must be above 0.97. So if you do get repeats for samples, it's usually hair samples that get repeats. Try and make sure that the hair sample is not wet, that it's not dirty, that you have enough hair in it, and try and pull the hair from the tail, the base of the tail of the animal. That's where you'll get the best follicles. Like I have some people send me maybe literally 10 hairs and I know that's not going to work. So send a good bit of hair, but make sure it's clean and dry and that you've taken it correctly. Okay, so when the calf is genotyped, we will get error messages on the system if the calf has the, let's say, the wrong dam or the incorrect sex. So there are two pieces of information that are on the passport that you would already have for your calf. So if the calf, as you'll see here, in this particular one, there was a genotype, it was submitted and the registration said it was a male calf, but it predicted that it was a female calf. So in Ireland, you can change your passport and that links to our system and it updates us when the passport has been changed. So the sex has been changed from male to female. So for the European breeders, if the genotype does flag an error with, let's say, the dam or the sex, if they can send us a copy of the updated passport with the correct sex, we can revalidate the genotype, you know, following confirmation of the correct sex, and then we can proceed with verification. Okay, so this is, I guess, what we're looking at. The longest stage in the process is, I guess, returning a hair sample to us, particularly for the Irish breeders. So if you're not in one of the genomic schemes, you'll probably get hair cards sent out from us. So the longest step of the process is, I know, let's say if you get a hair card in February and you don't send it back until November, and then you're looking for a cert, you had a long period of time to send the hair card back. But we can usually do the testing. If the genotype is okay, we can get the genotyping and the myostatin testing done in less than 3 weeks. I've seen it as quick as 2 weeks. You'll see here for this particular, this is a European animal. It was born on the 3rd of April 2022, and all the testing was completed and the pedigree cert was issued on the 9th of June 2022. So this is a male. You can see that he's genotyped. He's parentage verified here on the 8th of June, and his myostatin was red. You can see here non-carrier status on the 9th of June, then proceeded to pedigree. So everything, once we receive a good quality sample and it's a valid genotype and there's no problems with the parentage verification or the sex, we can proceed quite quickly with the next stages and get the certificates out. Okay, so again, it's a little bit different for the EU breeders compared to the Irish breeders. Like the Irish breeders, you can register calves on the Department of Agriculture website, or you have apps like Herdwatch that you can register calves through. It's a little bit different for the EU breeders because we don't have access to their live herd profiles. So we have created herd profiles for all of them on the ICBF. So if we have a particular breeder in, let's say, Germany, we have all of the cows that they own are stored in a particular profile. So at the moment, I guess only we can see that information. But with the registration app, which we have a few screen grabs of it here now, it's almost ready to go. The prototype looks really good. Everyone's going to be sent a login ID and a temporary password corresponding to their membership number. Okay, and the app is also going to be functional in different languages. So don't worry if you're not very comfortable with English. You can change the language in the app. So this is what you'll see typically. As I said, this is a typical format for one of the member numbers. So it's Aberdeen Angus, ES for España, and it's member 8000. So you'll be able to see all of the females, males, and calves in your herd. And if you want to register a calf to a particular cow, you just click on her. And I'll show you on the next slide then what pops up for that. And you can also see the registration status of a particular animal. So some animals, we might need DNA on the dam. If she's a heifer that doesn't have a genotype, we might need a repeat sample if it's a bull and the call rate isn't good enough for myostatin testing. So there will be updates. So you can see the registration status just in case you're anxious to get certificates. So this is what you're going to see when you register an animal. So this is, it's very similar to what we have in the Irish system. So we try to keep things as, as mirrored as possible between the two. So you enter in your animal ID, the calf name that you want, the date of birth, you tick a box for the sex, sire and dam information, and you can enter in the birth weight, which will also be printed on the pedigree certificate. And you can give a survey of the calving difficulty. So if it's easy calving, it was difficult, or it was veterinary assisted. Okay. So there's also an online herd book as well that's hosted by ICBF. And so this will let you search for animals by different criteria. So you could search by, let's say, any animal born between the 1st of the 1st, 2020 and, the 1st of the 1st, 2022. And you could say that you want it to be sired by a particular bull, and it'll bring up all the animals that fit those criteria. So yeah, and you can search by different economic indexes as well, and the owner location. I know at the moment the owner location is fixed for different regions in Ireland. So we are going to work on getting it for different countries as well. So if you're looking for a bull sired by a particular AI bull in Spain, it'll be able to display all of those results for you as well. And you can currently access the online herd book through the website. There's a link for it on the homepage. And we're also working on a basic user guide for all the EU breeders on how to use the online herd book. Okay, so that's it from me really. That's the infrastructures that we have in place for the genomic registration and for the online registrations. And we have the current capabilities for myostatin testing, which I think Katie's going to speak about in her presentation. And in time, then we'll hopefully be able to look at some other defects of importance to the breed, such as developmental duplication, curly calf, and fawn calf. And as always, if you have any questions, my email is here, and I think I'm in email contact with all of you anyway. So thank you very much.